Hello and welcome to Connect and Collaborate. I am Alex Hopkins, your on-air producer, and we are having our monthly check-in with one of my favorite people, and probably one of our audience's favorite people at this point. We've been doing the show for 3 years almost with you?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, oh, but to introduce you, this is Anthony Lambatos with Butters Catering. It's a second-generation business. It's a catering business. But you guys have a lot going on right now, actually.
Oh, for a slower time of year, yes, it's pretty crazy. So it's fun to be here, though, Alex, and thanks always for having me.
Yes, always enjoy you in studio. We always have a great conversation. You always bring me such amazing people, too. But before we get into that, I want to talk about this new website that you just launched today.
Yes.
Yes.
We are excited. So I'll take a step back. We leave. Next week is the annual catering convention. CaterSource puts it on. It's in New Orleans. We are very, very excited.
Yes.
We've got 11 members of our team that are going to be going. So we're very well represented, but I'm really proud of how our team is involved with everything going on. There's going to be 5 of us that are actually doing some sort of presentation. We have 2 people on our team that receive scholarships through the International Catering Association to attend, so that's really cool and a huge honor as well. And then we have a couple of our chefs that are competing in different competitions while we're there. So Footers will be very well represented while we're in New Orleans, and I'm doing a few presentations as well. But the exciting thing is that we're going to be launching our offshoot of Footers Catering, which is MIBE Tribe, and that is the acronym, which if you've listened to shows before, you've heard us talk about MIBE, and that is an acronym for Make It Better Every Day. So we have turned that into our offshoot company where we want to really help companies in the hospitality industry. We think we can revolutionize it by really helping them focus on their culture and heart leadership. Those are things that within the hospitality industry I don't think are always a norm. And the hospitality industry is different from so many other. It's not tech, and it's not. It's
not 9 to 5 at all. Yeah.
We have our own set of challenges, and so I think the conversation, which we've had many guests both in and outside the hospitality industry over the course of the show, but there's a different set of challenges that come with the hospitality industry, and so we are excited about what we've been able to accomplish over the past 8 years since April and I purchased the business, and sharing that with other people who are excited to learn. Want to come visit us and experience our hospitality immersion program that we've created, which is going to be a lot of fun. So the website is live, mibetribe.com. You can check it out. It is whimsical and fun and
to say the least.
Enjoy.
Yes. As I was telling you before the show started, I did get a chance to check it out, and even the bios. Like, I want to go grab drinks with some of the people that I saw on there. I've met a lot of your staff, but I've met everyone. And so there were a few people I was like, just give her my number. We'll hang out. The Rainmaker. Yeah, Crystal, as you said. So it's a really cool website. You get to know people right away. But I want to make sure that everyone knows that you aren't just doing this willy-nilly. You guys walk the walk.
Well,
right? In addition
we
to
like
talking
to think
the
so.
talk.
Yes, we like to think so.
You have plenty of resources to show that you've been able to be an amazing business.
Well, I certainly appreciate that.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Feel so fortunate. We have an incredible team and what they've been able to accomplish. But they've all bought into this idea of what it means to create a great place to work, and they've owned it. It's not just April and I setting the tone and saying, here, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. They've really embraced it and been part of it. And so this is also an ode to what they've been able to do, and for them to share that it can be beyond just one person that feels the weight of the world to create or shift a culture. It can be done as a team atmosphere, and I think we're proof that that's possible.
So you allow other people to take some of the reins. That's amazing coming from somebody who owns a business. That's tough to do.
Well, that's been a huge part of I think our philosophy from day one, and is a good segue actually into our guest today.
Yes.
So I am very, very excited. This is a huge honor to have Julia Gentry with us, whose company is Live Purposed. And I've known Julia for many, many years, and she has been a friend of ours, but more recently has taken a more active role in helping us to get to the next level, both personally and professionally, April and I, and is also doing work now with our team. So that is an exciting extension where we are looking to Julia to help us grow, and she helps many other business executives do the same thing. So Julia, welcome. It's great to have you. Thank you for joining us.
No problem. I'm glad to be here.
Yes.
It's gonna be a fun conversation today.
Always.
So I mean, let's just jump right in. You know, your company is called Live Purposed, and I know that's so much of the work that you do. Talk a little bit about how you do that, and what you do with your clients.
Well, it's funny, just so you know too a little bit, so we've been on an adventure this last year. We sold everything at the beginning of 2018 and we jumped into an RV to travel the country. Mind you, I have three children under the age of 4. And so like to say that we're like somewhere between the line of brilliant and insane is like this understatement. But what got us here, so I use that analogy because when you start out on an adventure like that, you never get what you thought you were going to get going into it. And so for us, our journey started in 2008 as business owners. We were in real estate. We did investing, built a very successful business. And then at some point in time, you trigger, right? You sabotage it. And looking back, you're like, what was that all about? And so the only place that I figured out that I could give my pain purpose after, 2012 was to start coaching. So I started doing mastermind group coaching, and we coached, oh my gosh, over the course of probably 4 or 5 years, hundreds of different business owners. And it was so interesting to me because after you start coaching so many different people, it doesn't matter how many tools or principles you give people or to-dos or how-tos. You're like, why will some people do this and some won't? Like, this is not rocket science. And in fact, it's almost so simple, it's like hard. You know what I'm saying? So it sent us on this adventure of going, there's got to be something more that is creating this potential like linchpin. And that's where we really started to uncover this idea of purpose. And it can be such this ambiguous woo-woo concept, or it must be nice, or it's for people that have money, or it's for people that have a stable background. But what we started noticing, especially in businesses, is that you hit a point where you have to know what you stand for. You're tested in this area of what do I stand for? What do I stand against? Who am I? And how am I using my career and my business to actually infuse change in these areas? And that's what took us down the path of living purpose and creating a company all around the premise of we're not therapists. This is not woo-woo. And if anything, we'd be like, get in the ring, get ready to go. But let's help you understand who you really are so that what you're creating is in alignment with who you are. So you don't wake up in 5, 10, 15 years going, did this happen to me? Or what is going on? My life has gotten away from me. My business has gotten away from me. This is not in alignment. This doesn't feel good, but I don't know why. So we work with a lot of people who are either have it all together but are totally internally lost, or are just so internally lost that chaos and crisis is just everywhere. And so we just decided to run our lives and commit our journey on helping people understand why.
I got to ask you, there are some industries, some businesses I feel like they thrive in chaos. And I'm sure you come across a lot of people that want to continue that trend.
Sure.
Right? How do you combat that?
Totally. Well, I think, again, the word and the definition is so important to people, right? Because what happiness is for Anthony is very different than what happy is to me. Or my husband says all the time, he's an adventure guy. So his happy is play. And for me, literally, I don't like to play. I like to work, right? Or like my mom loves to do yoga. And I'm like, no, climb a mountain and like almost die on your way up. You know what I'm saying? So the beauty of this too is that everybody looks at this differently, and we're wired so uniquely that some people are built for chaos. But if we're not careful, we lose ourselves to chaos as opposed to understanding our place in creating change in the midst of chaos. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So when people start to understand their wiring and their makeup, which is built around experiences and beliefs and habits and all this stuff, and we start to go, okay, is this serving me? And if I do it more consciously, what could actually happen, as opposed to just doing it because I've always done it or doing it out of survival. So it's just a consciousness more than anything. I mean, I think that's kind of the problem, is just we're living unconsciously.
Right. And letting the world happen to us.
Correct.
And it becomes almost the path of least resistance.
Yep.
That you just kind of ride this wave, and,
Totally.
as opposed to being intentional about
Yes.
where you want to go.
Yep.
And I think personally for me, I've definitely seen that deviate. And
Yep.
you kind of look around and you're like, wait a minute, I can't point to anything that's wrong with
Yes.
my life. Like everything's good.
Yeah.
But
It's still not right.
There's something not
Yeah.
right,
Yep.
and so pursuing that has been huge in
Totally.
our work together. For I know me personally.
Totally. Well, and I think when you can start to put to words to things that you're sensing or feeling, there's so much freedom there.
Yeah.
Right. So I think people think, like, my biggest thing, like the path of least resistance will never make you proud. We want a life that makes us proud.
Yes.
And a lot of times our pride comes through doing the things that are right for us, but are somewhat challenging, that expand our capacity, reveal who we really are. Like that's what makes us proud. And so the path of least resistance, or a party every day is not a party, when we kind of finally look at those things and we actually consciously choose, is this going to make me proud? Is this going to make me a progressive person who I want to be? We set ourselves up so much more for success.
I love that you hit on that, because we've had a lot of discussions at Footers, and our theme this year for 2019 is love what you do. It's also the first line of our mission statement. But we've had a lot of conversations that love what you do doesn't mean we want to make everyone's job easier.
Yeah.
That's not what this is about. This is about a group of people doing committed work that is going to make them very proud.
Totally.
And we're relating back to how you can use stress in two ways, and that most people view stress as a negative situation and
Yep.
something that will cause friction and cause teams to break apart. When
Yep.
in reality, stress at its core can be used as a really good thing. When
Totally.
you go through stressful situations with people, and we can now bond over the fact that we just went through that,
Totally.
and we accomplished it, and we overcame whatever challenges came our way.
Yep.
That's so much more fulfilling and satisfying. And
Totally.
so it's been, especially for us, because we talk about we do hard work.
Yeah, yeah.
Catering is not easy.
Not at all.
and,
No.
and there's a lot of variables in what we do, and
Yep.
timing, and the fact that we do that every day. I can look at that and say that has honestly brought our team closer together.
Totally. Well, and I think, people ask me the number one question I get asked is like, so how do I live a purpose life? I'm like, well, most of you want this easy answer. I mean, you really do. You want to, well, how do I live? Like, you just want to skip the
pill.
foreplay, take the play. Yeah, take the pill. It's like, let's just jump into it. And you're like, but what they're not willing to do is that our greatest place of purpose is built in our greatest place of pain. Always.
Love that.
100% of the time. And so our pain tolerance, what's happening right now is that our pain tolerance is so low because we're exposed to so much, we can, if you think back to our parents when they grew up, keeping up with the Joneses was literally like someone on a farm 3 miles away that you maybe saw a couple of times a week. Now, keeping up with the Joneses literally means 5 billion people with the click of a button.
Yeah.
So now, keeping up with the Joneses is what's driving these external seeking problems. And so now when we start to feel pain, well, I just got on Facebook, nobody else is in pain. No, everyone else looks fine. And so I go home with my own pain and I lose myself to it, as opposed to going, wait a minute, what if this pain actually creates purpose? Because people either feel pain and they avoid it, or they feel pain and they get angrier. And so you see people that can be egotistical or narcissistic or demanding, or you see people that are passive and, they bow their knee and they don't know what they want. And so what's happening is we're getting divided, when the reality is the pain is there to instruct some fuel. But when you heal and you're willing to go into the world and do something with the pain, that's why the Me Too movement was brilliant, because it's Me Too. We just all call it something different.
Right.
But when we can finally come to terms with, if I stop running from my pain and look at it long enough to go, you give me my purpose, it's a game changer.
So
it just is.
Let's dive deeper into how that works and how that leads to, because I think it's, I've been through the process. So
I know, and some people are like, if that's the answer, I'm done with this show. I don't need to know the answer.
Yeah.
But you work with so many people, so take us through a little deeper into how that plays together and how that works.
Totally. So at a high level, so what we live today is a reflection of our beliefs. Right? So whatever I believe to be true is true. And it doesn't have to be true for you, and it doesn't have to be true for you. But what we're not understanding is where a belief is actually formed. So a belief is formed. This is a little bit of an equation, but it's not as challenging as it thinks. A belief is formed when we have an experience And that experience, we create an interpretation just to compartmentalize what just happened. This interpretation isn't even accurate. But what happens is we create this interpretation that then becomes our truth. And left to itself, then we create habits and practices and routines around it that then shapes who we are today. And the problem with this is that most of that happens from a brain perspective, happens between the ages of like 2 and 8 years old. That's when our brain is all in the cause and effect. That's what's happening here. If I put my hand on the hot stove, whoop, that's hot. That's when our brain is being shaped. So what happens is we seal in these, okay, if I do this, you do this. If my mom says this, that means this, right? We're just watching, we're absorbing it all. What happens is we're creating these interpretations and then we're forming these lies. And so we wake up in our 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, not recognizing that we're still kind of living back here in those beliefs. And we haven't like gone, do they serve me? Is it going to take me to the next level? Do I identify with it now? Like, it's not just a thing. It's me. It's my identification.
Right. And we've gone through our whole life seeing those things and validating them. And,
totally.
And looking,
that's the problem.
Scanning the whole world and saying, yep, it's true.
That's
yep,
true.
it's true.
It's the rose-colored goggles effect.
So is it worth it to say that sometimes you just need to sit down for a second with yourself and reevaluate?
Yes.
Okay.
Hardest thing to do, right? So simple. And you're like,
yeah.
Truly the 3 things right now that I see culturally speaking across our country, I'll just say that, the 3 things that will avoid someone living a purpose life is just the ABCs. It's avoidance, it's busy, and it's comparison. It is just the modern day first world problems. And again, I know some people out there, okay, but there's, what are suicide rates and homelessness and all that? I believe me, that is not mine. That is not the world that I work in. That is not where I'm the expert. But I would obviously say that there is so much depletion that we're just avoiding things. We're busying our minds and our schedules, and we're just in comparison to where we're losing ourselves. And so the result is all this stuff at the bottom.
I would like to explore the comparison aspect a little bit more and what exactly you mean by that. Do you mind defining that more?
Yeah, so comparison is I find my value and identification once I mirror it to you. So I'm losing myself and going, but Anthony, have you seen the way he dresses? He's got a thermo flask, he's got the family, he's got the car, he's got the successful business. Well, who am I?
Right.
And all of a sudden now we're comparing. We're not even having a friendly competition.
Right.
We're comparing what we see on social media. We're comparing successes. We're comparing, their path, they made $1 million in 3 years. We're comparing, and so what's happening is we're getting out of our own journey. We're getting out of our own skin because I'm trying to be Anthony. I'm trying to keep up with you.
Okay.
I'm comparing myself to you as opposed to going, no, what if I just compared myself to me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Competing with myself.
And
I think Michael Jordan said that. Didn't he say that?
Yeah.
He's like, everything changed for him. He's like, I stopped comparing myself to everybody else, and I just started going, no, I'm going to compete with myself.
And how can I be better tomorrow?
Correct.
If I can continue to make myself better, you're going to make those improvements and stop worrying about everybody else.
Totally.
It's a really hard journey to take yourself on.
I know. That's why most people don't.
Yeah.
It's easier not to.
It's easier not to. In theory, right? So this is my favorite thing I say all the time. And my mom used to say it. Now I finally get it. Pick your hard.
Yeah.
It's hard being married. It's hard being single. It's hard running your own business. It's hard working for someone else. It's hard to be fat. It's hard to be fit. It's all hard.
Yep.
Just pick your hard. And so again, this is where this consciousness goes like, I can stick out at a job that I hate and that's hard, or I could venture into the unknown and really find a company that matches my the rest I don't know. They're both hard. They're both require a lot out of me, but one is going to make me better and one is going to make me resentful. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like if we wake up each day and go, just pick my hard, you'd be surprised how I think people would maybe choose differently.
Well, because they're taking ownership of it.
Yeah.
That's, I think, one of my frustrations. And
Yeah.
I was going through an exercise and it was, you had to like finish the sentence. And the last one was like, I hate. And one of the things for me is like, I hate when people are the victim and don't take responsibility for.
We are one and the same.
Totally.
For the things that it says, it's not about what's happening to you, it's how you react to what's happening to you. And so many times we want to just put it off on somebody else and not take ownership of it, and that drives me nuts. But I think that's one of the things when you force people to say, like, yeah, I agree, that's hard. You're choosing that.
Yes.
Or you can choose this, and that's hard too, don't get me wrong. But then all of a sudden the burden is on them to take ownership of, like, yeah, I am.
Totally.
Like, I'm choosing this over this.
Totally.
And that's a tough thing for people to say.
And so this is where you start to fuel this a little bit. So I think also what's happening right now is that we are just getting bombarded and overrun by opinions, right? And opinions is a really heady thing if we're not careful, because opinions are built in survival, right? So opinions are built when I don't trust what's going on and all men are horrible because my dad was horrible. That's an opinion. Does that make sense? They're not all bad because we have Anthony Lambatos and my husband. They're not all bad, right? So, but what happens is that so many people, I feel like right now, are pushing these agendas and these opinions. It's a subtle place, but and this is kind of my thing, is this idea of conviction. And when you start to learn what you're really convicted by, I don't know if you've seen the movie Hacksaw Ridge, changed my life a couple of years ago. It's a really brutal movie to watch, but it's great. Amazing. A conviction is different because it becomes like God ordained almost. You know, like those moments when you're walking around going, I see these problems, and finally you're like, maybe I'm the one that's supposed to fix them, as opposed to pointing fingers or judging them or blaming my boss or my spouse. Maybe that like chasm isn't a chasm. It's an opportunity for me to inject myself. And now all of a sudden when I'm like, and if I did, it's for the greater good. And I kind of feel like I'm supposed to. You know what I'm saying? Have you ever listened? You're like, oh, shoot, maybe I'm supposed to do this. And you start to build this conviction, and that comes from down here. And it'll even sound like, I don't even know why I'm doing this. I just know I'm supposed to.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Like, that's that awareness piece, as opposed to opinions are going to come here, and they're judgmental, and they're right-wronging, and they're choosing sides, and all these, where a conviction is kind of like, you do you, and I'm going to do me, and it's for the greater good. And so I believe we need more convicted people, which is just this God-ordained, like, I can fix that problem.
And bringing your specific genius and talents into the light. You know, we talked a lot about the moon and what are we shining on, what percentage of us, and there's so much of being in a spot where you can use what your true gifts are. And when people are in those situations, what they're able to accomplish is amazing. But there's so many people that have these tremendous gifts and are never given the chance to put them into the light, to actually put them into action, to solve those problems. Whether they're scared to, or whether they, never had the opportunity, whatever those things are. To me, that's a really tough thing. And from a business standpoint, something we've really tried to focus on at Footers, of how do we make sure people are in positions where they're doing things that are natural to them, that they can really be successful at.
Well, and so for people that are listening, they're like, okay, this all sounds good, but how do I do this? This is truly where you would start. This is really, and it's kind of a fun exercise. You look at, who are you judging? Like, who are you annoyed at? Like, you'd point fingers at and you'd go, I judge the hell out of them, right? And it could be someone you literally don't know. I mean, if you want to go politics, great. If you want to go to your second grade teacher, great. If you want to go to your mom, like someone that you're just like, I can't stand that. I can't stand it. And then you take it to the next level. Go, okay, not them, but what is it that they do that just ultimately drives you crazy? So Anthony said, like, they play the victim. They don't take responsibility. For me, mine is like mediocrity. You know the right answers. You don't do anything, and then you complain. Like, I cannot stand that. I have no space. Like, Thanksgiving dinner drives me crazy because everybody's talking about all the problems but not willing to change them. Then you go, so then you look at that and go, so let's take the people, forget their faces now. Forget your second grade teacher's face and just look at the thing, right? It's victimhood, it's closed-mindedness, it's mediocrity, it's a thing that is really stifling opportunity and chance. And then you go, okay, so in your mind, if you could replace this victimhood with a different thought process, right? So now do this. And Anthony, what did you identify? Like, what would you hand someone?
Well, we're going to get into that in the next segment.
Okay, good.
We're running out of time here for their segment, but this is awesome.
Okay, great.
We're going to continue. Thank you,
Okay,
Julia.
awesome.
We're going to stay on this projected path here because I am curious how to figure this out,
Okay,
too.
good.
Yeah, I'm going to get rid of my closed-mindedness, bad thoughts. So stay with us here on Connect and Collaborate. We'll be right back. Again, we have in studio with us Anthony Lambatos from Footers Catering and Julia Gentry with Live Purposed. So stay with us here on Connect and Collaborate. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Connect and Collaborate. Once again, I am Alex Hopkins, your on-air producer. In studio, Anthony Lambatos with Footers Catering, our monthly check-in, and Julia Gentry with Live Purposed. I want to jump right back into our conversation.
Let's do it.
Yep,
we were
let's go.
hardcore on, so we're talking victimhood.
Yep.
Is one of your big pet peeves, and we're going to replace it.
Totally. So part of, again, what we have to do is when we get in judgment mode, we just start blaming the person so hardcore that it's almost like now I can't see the forest through the trees.
Right.
So we take what bothers you most about them, which is this area of victimhood. If you go, okay, let's say you're sitting in front of that person and they go, great, give me something. I'm going to listen to you this time around. I'll listen and take my victimhood and give me something that's going to empower me to just bulldoze right through victimhood. So what would you give someone who's in that place of victimhood? Everything always happens to me. It's not my fault. It's all happened. You don't understand my circumstances. And they go, but give me truth and I'll grab onto something different. What would you tell them?
The power is yours to change it.
The power is yours, right? So now we go, all right, let's see if this is true. So the thing that Anthony can't stand, which is kind of like a protest, the thing I stand against, Malcolm X said, that which we don't hate, we'll eventually tolerate. And it's really true. We start to accommodate the things that we just aren't willing to hate. And we go, no, we got to hate the right things. Yeah. My son's 5 right now. And he's using this new word, hate. And I'm like, it's a good word, but we got to choose our hate, right? Yeah. Like you cannot like things. And so it's been really interesting to have to like break some of these concepts down for a 5-year-old. Like, dang, the universe gives you like exactly what you need when you need it. So we got to choose that. So we take this and we go, okay, well, I hate the victimhood, but the way that I replace it is this idea that the power is yours. And then where we start to shape conviction is to go, do I really believe this? Where in my life have I seen this time and time and time again be so true that when I got back that the power was mine, and when I watch someone else or all the people that I really admire go, they probably relate to the same thing, then we start to form this conviction around it. And then you go to a place like Footers and you go, this is why he's a guy of empowerment. This is why everything that they do is built around teaching people how to fish. They don't fish for them. This is why in his life, I mean, you were doing that to some degree, and we just almost like shined the light of consciousness, and now you're like, oh, well, now I'm going to really do it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah. And so then
times
you get
10.
Times 10, you know? And then some people are like, oh, no wonder I'm miserable and depressed and full of anxiety because I'm not doing that. So for some people, they either are, they're doing it, they just weren't doing it consciously. And then for others, they're like, no wonder I'm leaking confidence and trust in myself because I'm not doing that. And then it just takes the pressure off of people, right? We're like attacking each other and judging each other, and we're judging ourselves, and there's so much going on as opposed to going, wait a minute, it's not the thing, it's the thing under the thing, under the thing. And then we're all coming together.
That
and
we've
it's
covered
like,
up for so many years.
Totally.
And that's what's, I think, so fascinating for me and hard about this process is that it does take some uncovering.
It totally does.
That you know, we have been in survival mode. We're in survival mode from day one.
For
right?
sure. Yep.
We're just trying to navigate this world in the best way we can, protect ourselves from things that don't feel good, you know, go towards things that do make us feel good.
Yep.
And over time, we lose sight of some of that.
Totally.
And it gets harder. The further away you get from it, the harder it gets to get back to it.
And that's why I have such a heart. You know, my heart is pulled in 2 very different directions when I look at like the people that I really love to help. But there's something that when you decide to be a business owner, I'm sorry, but you've stepped into the ring of needing to be a creator. That's what you are on the planet now. And the problem is that my hope and my aim is to create very conscious creators in this realm. And what starts to happen is that people are like, well, fine, I'm just going to do it this way and I'm going to run it this way. And you're like, but that's not going to be sustainable. People, you'll just tap out. And that's when they come to me typically, is when they're like, I can't keep doing the same thing. I got to do something different to go to the next level. And so there's these buckets, right? It's almost like unconscious incompetency. Then you have conscious incompetency, which is like, you know, when you start a new diet and you're walking down the grocery store aisle and you're like, what am I buying? And why is buying black beans so painful? I used to just, you know, like swipe everything. Now you're looking at every ingredient. You know what I'm saying? Like it is so, you're consciously going, I don't know what to do. Until you get to this place of very consciously competent, and then you're unconsciously competent again. And so when you know that this phase is happening and it's going to get worse before it gets better, and the only way that the light starts to trump the dark is that you keep at it and you keep at it, and that you recognize that all the brain, the survival mechanisms of the brain just want something new to grab onto. And so you're going to have to starve the mindset for a while. That thing that says, I'm a victim, I'm not worthy, I can't do this, who am I? All the weird things that we're saying to ourselves, can't depend on you, can't trust you. This is I got to starve this thing, because even though maybe it protected me up until this point, it had its rightful place, will not serve me in moving forward. And so as business owners, we built our businesses to survive. Like it was like fight or flight. You know what I'm saying? Like we lost our job. It was like F you, like we got to pay the bills. And we're like, great, I'll do my own thing. And so we built in survival mode, right? To not die, to not be on the streets, all these things. And then the transition into thriving and abundance and like creation, that's where like it gets weird.
Mm-hmm. We relate to that so well on a lot of levels at Footers, and we talk about, you know, I use the example for my coordinators because I think that that's a really good thing. They start in year one and they have, you know, they do X dollars in business in year one, and they feel, you know, they're getting used to it. They're catching up and kind of managing this workload that's a lot, and they get to the end of the year and they're feeling pretty good about it. And then you know, talk about, well, what do you want to do next year? And they look at like, okay, well, I, you know, want to double that, or I want to do, you know, quite a bit more. And you almost have to relearn everything because you can't do it the same way that you did it in year one. And if you want to get to that next level, if you want to get to that new number, you have to think about it differently, because to do twice as much work in the same amount of time doesn't add up. You're just going to burn yourself out. And so we have to break it down and think about, okay, what do you need to stop doing? What do you need to be more efficient at? What do you have to be twice as fast at? All those things. And I think that this correlates a lot to what we're talking about. That, again, what got us here, and that's so hard for people because you can look back but I've been successful up to this point. To throw that out the window and say, okay, it's not going to work anymore. But they talk about these ceilings that people get to, and those breaks, whether it's, you know, $1 million in business, and then there's the 5 million, and then 10 million, and how do you get over those? Those are the crux, and it you know, I've seen it time and time again with other businesses where really they get stuck at that level, and it's like they can't get through it because they're not willing to let go of what got them there.
Well, and you know what's so funny is that, I mean, it's so trite, but in our biggest thing that on our coaching, we didn't come with all these like strategic plans and process maps and tools, because we're like, you know, you're one thought away, but it's your thought and you have to own your thought, right? And so it is truly 99% mindset. It just is. And every time, it's almost like when you look at them climbing Everest. I work with a company that's one of the main, it's Colorado Mountain School, and they really helped me understand this analogy of climbing Everest. And it, like, he's like, you need to use this with your coaching. I was like, I'm totally stealing that, but I would give you the credit. So shout out to CMS. When they go, I mean, they actually like hit base camps like 4 or 5 different times on the way. And I'm going to butcher this, so anyone listening that really climbs this, listen past the details. They summit 4 or 5 different times before they actually hit Everest. And the whole idea there is they go past base camp 1, they go past base camp 2, and then they come back down. And the reason they do that is that they want to expose their body to the point of almost breathless. It's real euphoric. It feels even harder, but you don't stay there because you could literally die. You come back down to your base camp to acclimate. And so what we're not doing as people is we're not acclimating around mental, spiritual, emotional, relational base camps in our life to where it's still an active rest. And here's the best part that I learned when I sold everything to travel in RV. It's not about what you take with you. It's about what you're willing to let go of.
Yes.
Every single time.
Yes.
Every single time. Because we identify with accomplishments. We identify with doing it all. We identify with our to-do list. We identify with being valuable if I do this. We start identifying with all these things. And so when someone like me sits down and goes, okay, you got to start taking things off, you're like, hell, if I'm doing that.
Exactly.
Because that's all of who I am coming off, as opposed to going, if I'm climbing Everest, I actually need to get to the top with very little equipment, but I'm going to have to be strategic, and I'm going to have to rest, and I got to acclimate. And here's the thing is what most people do is just don't stay for too long. You know, don't settle into this like, okay, I'm comfortable. It's brutal to get up and going again.
Yeah.
It really, it's like stop working out for a while, and it takes almost harder energy to get going than just kind of have an active rest day. You know, like it's harder to build momentum again than to just kind of like take a rest day, maybe just go for a walk, keep your body kind of in that zone, because you know, I'm going to climb again. But it's what I'm willing to let go of in order to get to where I haven't been.
Yeah.
And that comes into the mind. It's the one thought away. I'm one thought away. There's so much hope there. I think for most of us, if we think that we're a million thoughts away or the wrong thought, we're so stimulated by fear as opposed to going, no, it's one thought that has the power to change everything here. Truly. I mean, if you look at even like the victim thing, you're like, no, baby, the power is yours. Literally has the power to change everything.
Yep.
One thought. That's all it was.
And a shift.
And
Go
shift.
ahead,
Yeah, I have a comment here because I heard one time there are 3 reasons typically people don't move forward from where they are, and it's either pride, you feel too prideful to leave where you are and perhaps take a pay cut to go somewhere else,
Risk.
right? For example,
Or risk
Right, yeah.
not working. Yeah.
yes. Fear or insecurity is another one,
Yep.
right? You don't feel like you are good enough to go to that next level. And then the last one is pure laziness.
Totally.
I just don't want to deal with
Don't
it.
have the energy.
Yeah. And I get that one. But at the same time, those are the 3 things that tend to hold us
Yep.
back. What are your thoughts on those and maybe getting over that?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is just going, it's going to be the human condition, and we also we start to isolate ourselves thinking that we're the only one that experiences those things. And part of it is that I look at it, and the people I like to work with typically have to be in one of 3 places. Either they are in so much pain, or they are just so over it, or they have hope. They've got a glimmer of hope. And those are the people that are like, they start to build the fire, right? And so you almost have to come to the end of yourself to move to the next phase. It has to hurt so bad, or the hope of what's next has to be so great that you're like, I don't need to be convinced anymore. I'm so convicted of that. It's just a game changer. Because you can dance. I mean, how-tos are out there now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, when people are like, well, how do I do that? I'm like, oh, honey,
Just Google it.
Google it. And my husband always says, he's like, did you Google it? And I'll look at him and go, touche. I get it.
Yeah.
But what it really is, it's not the thing. It's not that I don't know how to Google how to. It's that the fear, the hesitation, the rejection, the da-da-da. And all of a sudden you're like, but if power's mine. And I know who I am.
Yeah.
And I know why I'm here. And I know it's not doing the right way. It's just doing it. You know what I'm saying? And you like talk yourself into this new way of living. We will act our way to a new way of thinking more often than we will think our way to a new way of acting.
Yes.
Oh, I like that.
Yes, we talked about that today in our leadership meeting, and
Did
we
you?
talked about the fact that simply doing some sort of power pose, pose that they talked about the Wonder Woman or Superman pose, and simply doing that for 2 minutes a day actually it changes your confidence.
Yeah.
And over time you develop this real belief of more confidence in yourself, and that presence that you carry throughout your day actually shifts. So totally buy into that. And I love what you've talked about before too, of that people are more likely to run from pain than toward pleasure.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what makes this so tough, that yes, these are great, things, we want to do this and we want to achieve that. But if it doesn't hurt bad enough, we may never move off of there.
Yeah.
And that's where I think you see so many people have to hit rock bottom or have these tragic things happen to them. And April and I were talking about this the other day, that I think life has a way of tapping you on the shoulder a little bit when something's not working and saying, hey, something's not right. And most of us just ignore that. And so, then, it may go on a little, and then you get like a little bit of a shove. And when I say that, it's a metaphor for something that happens in your life. And if you continue to ignore it, eventually life kind of takes a 2x4 and hits you over the head and forces you to deal with whatever that is.
Yes.
And being aware of that, I've seen that happen so many times with people in my life and people in other people's lives, that it's like, that was not a problem that happened yesterday. That was a problem that started a year ago and never got dealt with.
Totally. Yeah, and the hope is that once you kind of get hit hard enough and then you kind of get out of there, now you get in this mode of going, I just need to kind of be nudged, because I remember that process.
Right. Yes.
To where now I'm just looking for the nudges.
It's like, ooh.
Okay, got it, because I get where this could take me, and I get that now, it's decision management. So this is what's always interesting, is that you're kind of always in 2 different lanes. You're in survival or you're in abundance, right? And so part of this is, okay, if I'm going to make a decision today out of survival or fear or insecurity or victim, then that seed that I'm planting today is going to come out as fruit tomorrow in theory, right? And so what we're forgetting though is that when we just make this decision today and then the next day we make a decision over here, now all of a sudden we're growing this forest and it is so confused because we're not aware that there is such a thing as decision management. And so when you start to wade these waters, the hard part is, you're going to be looking at this forest going, I don't even know what's true or not, until you go, yes, I do. Confidence is built in trust, and self-trust is I do what I say I'm going to do and to the best of my ability because it's good for me, which means it's good for other people. And then when you start to kind of get out of this lane and you start to make more, all of a sudden you start to notice that the other trees start to grow and these ones kind of start to die. And so there's got to be a lot of grace in this process because you're going to be cutting down weeds that you're like, crap, I made that decision yesterday or a year ago. You know what I'm saying? It's easy to look at like weight. So someone that's overweight, well, you didn't just wake up overweight. It took you time to get here. So it is going to take some time to undo it. Well, business is the same. You're going to look and go, nobody's listening, or the culture or the leadership or all these problems. And you're like, okay, baby, like it took you this long to get here. And so there's going to have to be this grace period that people are kind of walking around eggshells going like, are you doing, everybody's like, you're going to have to teach people how to treat you because you've been kind of teaching people how to treat you to a certain way up till this point. And it just is going to be weird for a little while. It just
yeah, no, you're totally right. We've been doing these studies on marginal gains, there's a book, Atomic Habits, that details a lot of this. But the study, and it ironically relates right back to MIBE Tribe, this Make It Better Every Day. And so when we think about a 1% improvement every day, if you do that for a year, by the end of the year, you're 37 times better than you were. And the difference between doing something that makes you 1% better or 1% worse is really small, right? Like it's really easy to just make a bad decision and get 1% worse. And it's really easy to make a good decision and get 1% better. But over time, if we do that every single day, 1% worse brings us almost to zero compared to that 37 times better than where you were, just by approaching it with one small step at a time. Because too many times we think it has to be this wholesale change, immediate fix. It's got to happen overnight. And in reality, I'm a big proponent of none of that is an overnight success. There's no such thing, right? And all these great ideas you think about, it was really, when we think about innovation, and I kind of push back against the fact that innovation is this like magical thing that happens. I think innovation is something that happens over time, but at some point there's a tipping that happens that makes people get their attention and are like, that's awesome. But all they saw was the tip and thought it came from zero and didn't see that like, here was all the lead up to it. And then that just made it work.
Totally. I agree. And I think the beautiful part about this is it's so simple and it's so hard.
Yes. We talk about that all the time in Footers. Like I honestly feel like there's very little secret sauce in the world.
Yeah.
Like I just not. like yes, there's some proprietary information here and there, but by and large, you can figure out how to do that. And people ask us all the time, we're going to cater stores and there's other caterers. Why do you get up there and share all this with caterers and potential competitors that are from Denver that go? And it's like, I don't care. I know how hard it is to implement half this stuff.
Totally.
And so if you can do it, more power to you. It's not in the idea. It is the implementation of it and the execution of where the difference is really made.
Totally. Yeah, and I agree. So back to the idea of like there's 3 ABCs of not living purpose. The ABCs of living purpose. A is awareness, B is belief, and C is creation. And so they can't stand together, right? Like you can't be avoiding and aware at the same time. You can't be busy and like believe at the same time. You can't be comparing and creating at the same time. And so at some level you go, I got to pick a lane. So all I want to stir up for people is just like, and my husband and I, like, the hard part about gaining knowledge is like, now I'm responsible for it. You know what I'm saying? So like, if you don't really want to know about that food or what it does to your body, if you don't really want to know about money and how it works, if you don't really want to know how to enhance your sex life, like if you don't really want to have to come to terms with some of the stuff, like don't ask the questions.
Ignorance is bliss.
It's not, you totally, for a certain time, right? Until you start to go, oh shoot. So now what we at least own is if we're going to eat, like, so my husband is an ice cream guy. I don't do dairy. I can't do ice cream.
I love ice cream.
My system. I don't like it. And
it's
just
a guilty
not good for
pleasure
you, right?
of mine.
Like, we've learned a lot about dairy. We're not big dairy. But if we're going to do it, instead of just like shaming, there's actually more neurological damage done in the shame of eating ice cream than just actually eating ice cream.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Huge. So
I'm glad I don't ever feel bad about it then.
Yeah, me either, right?
But the idea is like, I'm just going to have, like, I'm choosing to eat my poison, but no big deal. Like, I'm going to get right back on the track. Like, when you just kind of go like, it's okay to be human. It's okay to not be perfect. It's okay. But the awareness piece, like, but if you're eating ice cream and you're avoiding it and then you're shaming it and then you're dead and now I'm not this, your confidence is leaking. You're not trusting yourself. You don't love yourself. So what comes out is like hatred. You can't help it.
Yeah.
You just can't help it, right? It's going to affect your performance, the way you interact with people, the way all of that. And so part of it is just going, just the awareness piece. And then instead of being busy about doing all these things, you go, no, I believe. And what do I believe? And what belief could shape all of this, right? Like ultimately, like, well, that's woo-woo. Well, you've created a life believing that, which tells me if you can create that life believing that lie, just go, what if you could create something better? Yeah. Like, it's just believing. And then again, instead of comparing and we go, no, I'm going to use all of this as just like, whoa, what a big, crazy world and what's possible, what's available, and then go create.
Yes.
What are you here to create?
Exactly.
Right? Like
what can I do?
Yes.
For me, that's better than yesterday.
Totally. It's just a creation thing.
I love it. You have a quote about, and I'm going to butcher it, but about being busy and what doesn't, bring you down.
Yeah. So what doesn't make you, if it can't make you bad, it'll make you busy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the evils in your life.
The evils in your life.
If they don't make you bad, they'll make you
bad
busy.
Phase, you know what I'm saying? Like where it's like, but ultimately we, in theory, should graduate from like the bad phase. But what happens is now it's just
we just
epidemic
replace it with
busy. It's just busy.
And that covers up so much.
It just covers up so much.
Wear it as this badge of honor. Totally. I'm so busy. I have so much going on.
It truly is like our place. Like instead of just like drugs or alcohol or whatever, it's busy.
Yes.
It is just as much of this endorphin high, and it's a place that you can hide, and you don't have to look at what's really going on. And you
churn through a meaningless to-do list, and at its core, that you don't really feel good about yourself. I've talked about this before because I've had days where it's like, I literally think I spent the whole day buried in my inbox of email and wasted a day. And it's like, what did I accomplish? Sure. And I used to use this analogy that like, I think most people, you're coming to work. You imagine you're driving to work and you get about, 2 minutes away and all of a sudden this line starts to form at your door. Mm-hmm. And you come in to work and you put your stuff down and you sit down and you wave the first thing in and it's emails and then there's a phone call and then there's somebody with a question and it's like whack-a-mole and you're like, boom, got that, sent that email, answered that call, returned that voicemail, answered that question, boom, boom, whack-a-mole all day long. And then all of a sudden you get to 5 o'clock and you're like, what did I do?
Just do? And part of this is, and I know you don't like this, so we'll call it, there's seasons, there's chapters, there's segments of our life, whatever you want to call it. And so there are these times even in business where you go, there's a season that, you say yes to everything. Like that's just part of being a business. And then there's a season that you got to say no to almost everything. And there's but if we don't know what season we're in, and I'm comparing the way that you do it or the way that I used to do it, that's where the problem is that we don't stop long enough and go, what chapter am I in right now? Right. And again, the yeses got me here, but if I keep saying yes, I'm in trouble.
Yes.
I'm in trouble. I can't keep saying it. And then I'm reactive.
I'm in a place in my life where I've been testing myself when opportunities come my way or people ask for my time. If I can't say hell yes, I want to do that. Yep. I need to say no. Totally. And that's my cue where I think historically I've been very open to like, I'll do that. I'll do that. So if it's not a hell yes, it's a no.
It's a no. Totally. I think just honor the chapter you're in. Own it, honor it. Our confidence is going to be built through this self-trust, which is just knowing yourself and knowing where you're at. It's just that awareness piece.
Exactly.
For sure.
Julia, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for joining us.
I want to stay all day.
I know. We could keep going.
This is nearly not enough time.
It's not, is it? Where can I find more information about you?
livepurpose.com.
Awesome. Yep. I appreciate that. And check out cobrt.com/radio-podcast for all of these shows and more. Look up Anthony Lambatos, Footers Catering. You can find all of our past shows. Be sure to like and subscribe our YouTube page while you're here. And thank you both so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks. You, Alex.